I turned 69 this year. I live alone in the house where I raised my son, Michael. This house holds so many memories. The walls have seen laughter and tears. My late husband, John, and I bought it when we first got married. Each corner tells a story of our life together. Now, it is just me and my memories. Before we begin, to make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late. Share it in the comments. In my bedroom, there is a small wooden box. This box is filled with heirloom jewelry passed down through generations. Each piece has a story. My grandmother's ring, my mother's necklace, and the bracelet John gave me on our first anniversary. These are not just pieces of gold and silver. They are pieces of my history and my family. Michael, my son, is married to Jessica. She is ambitious, always thinking about her next business idea. Michael loves her deeply and supports her dreams. Sometimes, I think he gets lost in her plans. But he is my son, and I love him. I decided to have a small dinner, just family. I wanted something simple, just a quiet evening with my son and his wife. It was supposed to be a celebration of family. When they arrived, Jessica was buzzing with excitement. She talked about expanding her business. She was full of ideas and plans. Michael seemed a bit tired but smiled and nodded along. As we sat down to eat, Jessica mentioned needing more funds for her business. She said it casually, as if discussing the weather. I listened, trying to be supportive. I know how much this means to her. After dinner, I went to my room. I wanted to show Jessica a piece of jewelry that I thought she would like. When I opened the box, my heart stopped. The ring, the necklace, the bracelet, gone. I felt a cold rush of panic. I checked again, hoping I was mistaken. But they were not there. I went back to the dining room. My voice shook as I asked Michael if he knew anything about the missing jewelry. He looked at me, then at Jessica. There was a long pause. Then he admitted it. He had sold the jewelry to help finance Jessica's business. He said it so simply, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't speak. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Those pieces were part of my life, my family's legacy. How could he do this without asking me? How could he not understand what they meant to me? Jessica tried to explain. She said it was a good investment. She talked about the potential returns and how successful the business could be. But her words were just noise. I couldn't process them. I looked at Michael. I searched his face for any sign of regret or understanding. He looked conflicted, but not enough. I realized in that moment how much he had changed. Or maybe how much I had been blind to it. I felt betrayed, not just by the loss of the jewelry, but by the loss of what I thought we had. I thought my son respected our family's past, our history. But now, I wasn't sure. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I nodded and smiled mechanically, unable to process what had just happened. Michael and Jessica left, unaware of the storm inside me. After they were gone, I sat in my room. I looked at the empty box and felt a deep sadness. It was not just about the jewelry. It was about trust and respect. It was about feeling valued by my own family. I lay awake that night, thinking about the past, about the stories each piece of jewelry carried. I felt a profound sense of loss. It was as if part of my family had been erased. Those pieces were not just mine. They were meant for future generations. Now, they were gone. I thought about Michael, about the boy he used to be. I wondered where I went wrong. How did we get here? I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. As the night passed, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let this go. I needed to confront them, to make them understand what they had done. But I also knew that whatever I did next, it wouldn't bring back my jewelry or the trust one had lost. I realized that night that I was standing at a crossroads. I had to decide what was more important, holding on to the hope that my son would change, or protecting what was left of my legacy. It was a painful choice, but one I knew I had to make. And so, with the first light of dawn, I made a decision. I would seek legal advice. I needed to protect my remaining assets. I needed to ensure that what happened to my jewelry wouldn't happen to anything else. I also decided to talk to Michael and Jessica separately. They needed to hear how their actions affected me. Maybe then, they would understand. Maybe then, they would see the hurt they caused. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. The bond between a mother and son is strong, but it is also fragile. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. As the sun rose, I felt a mix of determination and sadness. I was ready to face whatever came next, but I also mourned what I had lost. My jewelry, my trust, my sense of security, all gone in a single evening. But I was not done yet. I still had a voice, and I intended to use it. I would fight for what was left of my legacy, for the stories yet to be told. And in doing so, I hoped to find some peace and perhaps, a new beginning. After that night, my mind was restless. I kept thinking about the jewelry and what it meant to me. Those pieces were more than just objects. They carried stories from my past, tales from my family. I remembered my grandmother telling me about the ring. She wore it during hard times and good times. It was a symbol of strength and love. My mother wore the necklace on her wedding day. It was her good luck charm. Every piece in that box had a history, a life of its own. I felt a deep void. The jewelry connected me to my past and my family. Now, it was gone, and I felt like I lost a part of myself. I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. I decided to confront Michael and Jessica separately. I needed to understand why they did this and how they could do it without asking me. I called Michael first. We met at a small cafe near his office. He looked tense, knowing why we were meeting. I asked him why he sold the jewelry. He said Jessica needed the money for her business, and he thought it was a good idea. He said he planned to pay me back. I asked him if he understood what those pieces meant to me. He looked down, uneasy. He said he did, but it was hard to believe. I told him how hurt I was, how much it felt like a betrayal. He listened, but I wasn't sure if he truly understood. Next, I met Jessica. We met at their home. She was busy with her business plans. I asked her about the jewelry. She said it was a necessary step for their future. She talked about business growth and opportunities. I asked her if she realized the personal value of the jewelry. She shrugged it off, saying they would make it up to me. Her words felt empty. She didn't see the emotional loss, only the financial gain. I left their house feeling more alone than ever. The conversations didn't bring me peace. Instead, they showed me how much had changed between us. I felt like a stranger to my own family. A few days later, I met with my book club. We were a small group of retired teachers and librarians. We met once a week to discuss books and share stories. It was a comforting routine. That day, I shared my story with them. I needed to talk, to get it off my chest. As I spoke, one of my friends, Linda, shared her own experience. Her daughter had taken money from her savings without asking. It was a story of trust broken, much like mine. Linda's story struck a chord with me. She talked about how she had to rethink her future plans. It was a wake-up call for her. As I listened, I realized I needed to consider my own future. I couldn't let this happen again. The next day, I visited my lawyer. I explained what happened and asked for advice. We talked about protecting my remaining assets and making changes to my will. It was a difficult step, but one I knew was necessary. As we discussed my options, I felt a mix of guilt and resolve. I didn't want to cut my son out, but I needed to protect myself. My lawyer was understanding and supportive. She helped me see the situation clearly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Michael as a little boy. I remembered his laughter, his curiosity, and the joy he brought into my life. I wondered when things had changed. I felt a deep maternal conflict. I loved my son, but I couldn't ignore what he had done. I spent the next few days in quiet reflection. I walked around my garden, trying to clear my mind. I thought about my family, my past, and what I wanted for the future. Each step felt heavy, but necessary. I knew I had to find a balance. I needed to protect myself while keeping the door open for Michael. I hoped he would understand my actions one day. As I sat with my thoughts, I felt a shift inside me. I realized I needed to focus on self-respect. I couldn't keep giving without considering my own needs. It was a hard lesson, but one I was ready to learn. The following week, I finalized the changes to my will. I felt a sense of relief, knowing I had taken steps to secure my future. It was a bittersweet moment. I still hoped for reconciliation with Michael, but I knew I had to be prepared for whatever came next. I wrote a letter to Michael, explaining my decision. I told him how much I loved him but that I needed to protect myself. I asked him to understand and to think about his actions. I hoped the letter would open a path for healing. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken control of my life, and that gave me strength. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. In the days that followed, I focused on small joys. I took long walks, read books, and spent time with friends. I found comfort in simple things, and that helped me heal. I also started volunteering at a local charity. It was a place where I could give back to the community and find a new sense of purpose. It became a source of fulfillment for me. Through these small steps, I began to rebuild my life. I learned to forgive myself for past decisions and to cherish the independence I was gaining. It was a journey of self-discovery, and I embraced it fully. As I moved forward, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to embrace it. I knew I had the strength to face whatever came my way. With each passing day, I found new strength and clarity. I realized that while the past was part of me, it didn't define my future. I had the power to shape my own path, and that was a comforting thought. A few weeks passed since I changed my will. Life was settling into a new routine. I focused on myself, trying to find peace in small things. But the hurt from the betrayal lingered. I was healing, but it was a slow process. One afternoon, I met an old acquaintance, Susan, at a local cafe. She knew Jessica from the business community. As we talked, she mentioned hearing Jessica boast about the easy money she got from my jewelry. Susan said it without malice, but her words cut deep. I felt a fresh wave of betrayal wash over me. Jessica didn't understand what she had done. To her, it was just a business move, a smart decision. But to me, it was a loss of trust and respect. Hearing her brag about it was a new wound, one I wasn't prepared for. I needed to know more. So, I visited a jewelry store in town. I wanted to find out what happened to my pieces. The jeweler, a kind man, remembered the transaction. He told me the pieces were sold far below their value. They were treated like ordinary items, not heirlooms with history. The news left me stunned. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the lack of understanding and respect. My family's legacy was reduced to a quick sale, a means to an end. As I walked home, I felt a mix of anger and clarity. I realized that I had to take decisive action. The betrayal was deeper than I thought. It wasn't enough to just change my will. I needed to secure my future and independence further. That night, I sat down and wrote a list of what mattered to me. My family's history, my peace of mind, and my independence topped the list. I realized I needed to protect these things fiercely. I made the decision to set up a trust. I wanted to support causes that were important to me. I thought about education, community support, and helping those in need. It was a way to honor my family's legacy while ensuring my own peace. I wrote a heartfelt letter to Michael. I explained my decision and my disappointment. I told him how his actions had hurt me. But I also expressed hope for his future understanding. I wanted him to know that my love for him remained, even if my trust was shaken. The next day, I met with my lawyer to discuss setting up the trust. We talked about the causes I wanted to support and how to structure it. It was a step toward securing my legacy on my own terms. As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of relief. I was taking control, making decisions that aligned with my values. It was empowering, even if it was bittersweet. I spent the following weeks focusing on my new plans. I continued volunteering and connecting with the community. These activities brought me joy and a sense of purpose. I also started journaling. Writing down my thoughts and feelings helped me process everything. It was a way to reflect and find clarity in the chaos. Through it, I began to forgive myself for past decisions and to embrace my independence. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from an unexpected ally, a distant relative who heard about my situation. She offered words of support and understanding. Her letter was a reminder that not everyone was swayed by appearances. It touched me deeply. As I read her words, I felt a renewed sense of validation and encouragement. I wasn't alone in this journey. There were people who understood and supported my choices. It gave me strength to continue on my path. I realized that life was about moving forward, even when the past tried to pull me back. I had to embrace the future, with all its uncertainties and possibilities. Through these experiences, I learned to find strength in vulnerability. I discovered that healing was a journey, not a destination. It was about taking small steps each day and finding peace in the present moment. As I continued to rebuild my life, I felt a growing sense of freedom. I was no longer tied to the past, but instead focused on creating a future that reflected my values and aspirations. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. I had the support of new friends, my community, and my own inner strength. It was enough to keep me moving forward. With each passing day, I felt more at peace with my decisions. I knew I was doing what was right for me, even if it was hard. I was reclaiming my life, and that was a powerful feeling. As I stood on the porch of my home, looking out at the world, I felt a sense of closure. I had taken control of my life and my legacy. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, with hope and courage. In that moment, I knew I was on the right path. I had found a new sense of purpose and independence. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Setting up the trust was just the beginning. I knew I had more steps to take to secure my future. I needed to distance myself from the emotional turmoil and find a place where I could truly start over. I began organizing my affairs. I met with my financial advisor to finalize the changes. It was important to me that everything was in place. I wanted to make sure my decisions were clear and protected. This process was both daunting and liberating. I realized I needed a fresh start. This house held too many memories, both good and painful. I decided to look for a new place to live, somewhere peaceful and quiet. A place where I could focus on myself and my new life. I found a small cottage in a serene town not too far away. The town was charming, with friendly neighbors and a slower pace of life. It was perfect for the fresh start I needed. The cottage was small but cozy. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where I could heal and grow. I started preparing for the move. I packed my belongings, deciding what to keep and what to let go. It was a cleansing process, shedding the past and making room for the future. I wanted to carry only what truly mattered to me. As I packed, I reached out to friends and community members. I wanted to say my goodbyes quietly. I didn't share my full plans, just that I was moving on. It was a bittersweet process, but necessary. I visited the places that held special memories for me. The park where I used to take Michael when he was little, the cafe where John and I would have breakfast on Sundays, the library where I spent countless hours. Each visit was a farewell, a way to honor the life I had lived here. On the day of my departure, I left a letter for Michael. I placed it on the kitchen table, along with a small memento from my jewelry collection, a brooch my mother gave me. It was one of the few pieces I managed to keep. I hoped it would remind him of our family's history. In the letter, I expressed my love and hopes for him. I wrote about my decision to move on and find peace. I told him I was always open to reconciliation, but I needed to set boundaries for my own well-being. It was a difficult letter to write, but it felt necessary. Early in the morning, I loaded my car with the last of my belongings. The house was empty, but the memories lingered. I stood in the doorway, taking one last look. I felt a mix of sadness and anticipation. As I drove away, I didn't look back. I focused on the road ahead, on the new beginnings waiting for me. It was a journey towards healing and independence. I felt a sense of freedom, knowing I was taking control of my life. Arriving at the cottage, I felt a wave of calm. The air was fresh, the surroundings peaceful. It was everything I needed to start anew. I unpacked slowly, setting up my new home with care and intention. I began to create a new routine. I explored the town, meeting neighbors and finding local spots I enjoyed. It was a chance to rebuild my life, on my terms. I found joy in simple things, morning walks, reading on the porch, tending to a small garden. I also continued my volunteer work. I found a local charity that aligned with my values. Giving back to the community brought me fulfillment and a sense of purpose. It was a way to connect with others and make a positive impact. Through these activities, I built new relationships. I met people who shared my interests and values. They became friends, offering support and companionship. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone in this new chapter. As I settled into my new life, I reflected on my journey. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it was no longer the center of my life. I had moved beyond it, finding strength and peace within myself. I knew that healing was a process, one that required patience and self-compassion. I embraced each day as an opportunity to grow and learn. I found solace in the present, letting go of the past and welcoming the future. My new beginning was not without challenges, but I faced them with resilience. I had come a long way from the person I was before. I was stronger, more independent, and more at peace with myself. I realized that life was about change and growth. It was about finding the courage to let go and the strength to move forward. I had done both, and I was proud of the person I was becoming. As I stood on the porch of my cottage, I felt a deep sense of contentment. I had found a place where I could be myself, without fear or regret. It was a new chapter, one I was ready to embrace fully. In the quiet moments, I still thought about Michael. I hoped he would find his own path and understand my decisions. I wished for reconciliation, but I knew it would take time and effort. For now, I focused on the present, on building a life that reflected my values and aspirations. I was grateful for the journey and the lessons it taught me. I looked forward to the future with hope and optimism. With each passing day, I found more reasons to smile. I was living a life that was true to me, and that was the greatest gift of all. I felt free, and that freedom was everything I had hoped for. Settling into my new life at the cottage was a gentle process. The peace and quiet were exactly what I needed. I spent my mornings on the porch, sipping tea and watching the world wake up around me. It was a simple routine, but it brought me joy. I began to find comfort in these small moments of solitude. They allowed me to reflect on my journey and appreciate the path I had chosen. Each day felt like a fresh start, free from the weight of past burdens. Adjusting to change took time, but I embraced it. I created new habits that focused on self-care. I started each day with a walk through the nearby woods, breathing in the fresh air and enjoying the natural beauty around me. It was a time for reflection and rejuvenation. I also began exploring new interests. I signed up for a pottery class at the local community center. It was something I had always wanted to try. Working with clay was therapeutic. It allowed me to express myself creatively and connect with others who shared my interest. Through these activities, I met many wonderful people. The community here was warm and welcoming. They accepted me without question, and I felt a sense of belonging. It was a new chapter filled with possibilities. Making new friends was a blessing. I found companionship and support in unexpected places. We shared stories, laughter, and dreams. It was a reminder that even in solitude, we are never truly alone. Building these relationships helped me heal and grow. I also spent time volunteering at the local charity. It was a cause close to my heart, and I enjoyed being part of something meaningful. Helping others brought me fulfillment and a sense of purpose. It was a way to give back and make a difference in my new community. Through volunteering, I met people who inspired me. Their stories of resilience and hope touched my heart. They reminded me of the strength we all have within us, even in the face of adversity. It was a powerful lesson, one I carried with me each day. As I settled into my new routine, I found myself reflecting on the past less and less. My thoughts shifted towards the future and the possibilities it held. I was no longer defined by what had happened, but by the choices I was making now. Journaling became an important part of my healing process. Each evening, I took time to write down my thoughts and experiences. Through writing, I gained clarity and perspective. It helped me understand my emotions and find peace with my decisions. I also received a letter from my niece, Emily. She was supportive of my choices and offered words of encouragement. Her letter was a reminder that family bonds could remain strong, even when faced with challenges. It brought me comfort and hope. Emily's words touched me deeply. She understood my journey and respected my need for independence. Her support was a beacon of light, guiding me through the uncertainties of this new chapter. I was grateful for her presence in my life. Finding purpose in my new surroundings was a continuous journey. I focused on activities that brought me joy and fulfillment. Whether it was tending to my garden, attending community events, or simply enjoying a quiet afternoon with a good book, I embraced each moment. Through these experiences, I discovered a renewed sense of self. I was no longer tethered to the past, but free to explore the person I was becoming. It was a journey of self-discovery, one that filled me with hope and optimism. As the days turned into weeks, I felt more at peace with my life. The cottage had become a sanctuary, a place where I could be myself without fear or regret. It was a safe haven, away from the chaos and turmoil that once consumed me. I celebrated my next birthday surrounded by new friends. It was a simple gathering, but filled with warmth and laughter. We shared stories and dreams, creating new memories in this new chapter of my life. It was a reminder of the beauty in starting over. With each passing day, I felt a growing sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the journey and the lessons it taught me. I was grateful for the strength I found within myself, and for the support of those who stood by me. Life was about embracing change and finding peace in the present. It was about creating a future that reflected my values and aspirations. I was doing just that, and it was a fulfilling journey. As I sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, a reminder of the beauty in life's simple moments. I reflected on how far I had come, and the person I was becoming. I had faced challenges, but I emerged stronger and more resilient. I had learned to let go of the past and embrace the future with open arms. In this new chapter, I found a sense of purpose and fulfillment. I was living a life that was true to me, and that was the greatest gift of all. I felt free, and that freedom was everything I had hoped for. With a heart full of gratitude and hope, I embraced the future, ready for whatever lay ahead. I knew there would be challenges, but I was prepared to face them with courage and grace. Life was unfolding in beautiful ways, and I was grateful for the journey. Life in the cottage was peaceful. My days were filled with routines that brought me joy and purpose. I spent time volunteering, enjoying nature, and connecting with my new friends. The tranquility was a balm for my soul. Then, one morning, I received unexpected news about Michael and Jessica. Through a mutual acquaintance, I learned they were facing difficulties. Without my financial support, their business ventures were struggling. I felt a mix of emotions, concern for my son, but also a reminder of why I had to set boundaries. I hoped Michael would find his way, and that these challenges would lead to personal growth. It was hard to watch from a distance, but I knew I had made the right decision for myself. I needed to protect my peace, even if it meant stepping back. A few weeks later, I received a message from Michael. He wanted to meet and talk. I hesitated at first, unsure of what to expect. But a part of me hoped for an honest conversation and a chance to mend our relationship. I agreed to meet him at a cafe in a nearby town. When I arrived, Michael was already there, looking nervous. We greeted each other, and I could sense the tension in the air. We sat down, and after a moment of silence, he began to speak. Michael expressed regret for what had happened. He admitted that he had been swept up in Jessica's ambitions and hadn't realized the impact of his actions. He apologized for the pain he had caused and said he was trying to make things right. His words were sincere, and I felt a glimmer of hope. I told him about my decision to change my will and set up a trust. I explained why I needed to protect myself and why it was important for me to find peace. I also shared my love for him and my hopes for his future. The conversation was emotional, filled with honesty and vulnerability. We talked about the past, the mistakes, and the lessons learned. Michael listened, and I could see he was trying to understand my perspective. I remained firm but open, setting clear boundaries for our relationship. I told him I was willing to rebuild our bond, but it would take time and effort from both of us. Trust, once broken, needed patience and understanding to heal. As we talked, I realized this meeting was a turning point. It was a chance to start anew, with honesty and respect. We both needed to let go of past grievances and focus on the present. We parted on tentative but hopeful terms. I felt a sense of relief, knowing we had taken a step towards healing. It was a small step, but a significant one. I hoped it would lead to a stronger, more understanding relationship. Returning to the cottage, I reflected on the conversation. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to try. I loved my son, and I wanted him to find happiness and fulfillment. I hoped this was a new beginning for both of us. I continued my routine, finding solace in the simple pleasures of life. The cottage was my sanctuary, a place where I could be myself. I took time to nurture my interests, connect with friends, and enjoy the peace I had worked hard to achieve. As the weeks passed, I noticed changes in myself. I was more at peace with the past and more open to the future. I had learned to embrace the present moment and find joy in everyday life. It was a journey of growth and self-discovery. I celebrated another birthday at the cottage, surrounded by new friends who had become like family. It was a simple gathering, filled with laughter and warmth. We shared stories and dreams, creating new memories in this new chapter of my life. With each passing day, I felt a growing sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the journey and the lessons it taught me. I was grateful for the strength I found within myself, and for the support of those who stood by me. Life was about embracing change and finding peace in the present. It was about creating a future that reflected my values and aspirations. I was doing just that, and it was a fulfilling journey. As I stood on the porch one evening, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, a reminder of the beauty in life's simple moments. I reflected on how far I had come, and the person I was becoming. I had faced challenges, but I emerged stronger and more resilient. I had learned to let go of the past and embrace the future with open arms. In this new chapter, I found a sense of purpose and fulfillment. I was living a life that was true to me, and that was the greatest gift of all. I felt free, and that freedom was everything I had hoped for. With a heart full of gratitude and hope, I embraced the future, ready for whatever lay ahead. I knew there would be challenges, but I was prepared to face them with courage and grace. Life was unfolding in beautiful ways, and I was grateful for the journey.